Welcome back to the Bolt and Hammer YouTube channel. I'm finally starting to feel better after my long illness. So thank you for your patience, and thank you also to all the new people who've discovered the channel over the last few weeks. It's been great to see all of your encouraging comments and likes. It's been really great as I recovered from my sickness. Anyway, for today's episode, I'm going to go over the different official game modes available in the 40K universe. These include Kill Team, Combat Patrol, Boarding Actions, and the full fat 40K game. I'm going to go over these in terms of smallest to largest, by which I mean both the amount of money that you need to get playing, as well as the number of models that you'll have on the board. Kill Team is where we start. It's a skirmish game between two players, each controlling a squad that is available for purchase in specialized Kill Team box sets. Each squad varies in size, but there are around 10 models each. While Kill Team models can be used in 40K games, the rules for Kill Team are substantially different. So you're still fighting for objectives and rolling dice to resolve attacks, but even some of the basics, like how players take turns, is different in Kill Team versus the full game. Games are designed to be relatively short, maybe around 45 minutes, once you have everything set up and know the rules well. And it's by far the cheapest way to play anything in the 40K universe. So an individual Kill Team set will go for about 60 to 80 US dollars per box at full retail price from Games Workshop. Some of the kits are extremely cool, in my opinion, but not every faction has a Kill Team available, while other factions have multiple. Some factions, too, that are not represented in other games do have a Kill Team, which I find really interesting, such as Traitor Guard for the Forces of Chaos. There is a new edition of Kill Team with new rules coming in, I think it's October 2024. This will include co-op rules, which I think could be really interesting for beginners. Combat Patrol is next up. It's a small-scale game between two players, each controlling several squads of units, and in some cases also a larger vehicle or monster. All the units required to play Combat Patrol games are included in a single box, which is available from Games Workshop for 168 US dollars or less if you get them from a discount retailer. The total number of models under your command could vary. I think the Custodes, the Adeptus Custodes, have the smallest force possible at 6, while the Death Guard weighs in at 37. These boxes are supposed to be roughly equal in power, to keep the game balanced and give each player a fighting chance of victory. That's not always the case. For example, my Tyranid Combat Patrol can do all right against my Space Marines, but it struggles a lot against my Orcs, as the Orcs have some very tough units that the Tyranids struggle to do any damage against. Combat Patrol uses a simplified version of the full Warhammer 40K rule set. So if you were to move up from Combat Patrol to the full game, it won't feel too much different besides the increased scale. Games are designed to last between 1.5 to 2 hours once everything is set up, and if both players know their armies well. Almost every faction available to play in 40K has a Combat Patrol available, with the only major exceptions being the Imperial Knights and their Chaos Knight counterparts. Boarding Actions are slightly bigger than Combat Patrol games in terms of the number of units and models on the board. They're scenario games where the scenario is that two small forces are fighting inside one of the massive spaceships in the 40K universe. Given these battles take place inside, a big difference here versus some of the Combat Patrols or the larger 40K games is that vehicles are prohibited. In fact, a number of units that would be otherwise playable are not allowed in boarding action games. And I suppose this is to keep things thematic, that you're not going to have a giant truck running down the hallways of a spaceship, but it's also likely for balance purposes. At this point in time, when I'm recording this in September 2024, there are not any standalone Boarding Action box sets that include models available for purchase. There is some terrain that you can buy, though it's really quite expensive. And you'd still need to buy all of the individual units yourself. Now we get into the full game. These are supposed to be full-scale conflicts, usually between two players, but they can involve more. Players can pick how large their game should be based on a point value assigned by Games Workshop to each unit in the game. A full-scale game is typically 2,000 points, but you can do whatever you agree with your partner. So 1,500 points or 1,000 points are also relatively common. For reference, Boarding Action games are up to 500 points, and combat patrols with their simplified rules typically include between 400 or 500 points. What does a 2,000 point army though look like for comparison's sake? I've got some here. We've got orcs, more of a horde style, and then Imperial Knights with very few units on the board. You need to build your army yourself. So there are some box sets available for purchase, including but not limited to combat patrols, which you can use all of those models directly in the full game. But then you'd need to buy additional units on your own. This gives you a lot of control over what your army looks like. But do note, really importantly, that some armies offer fewer points per dollar spent than others, and therefore they cost more money to get to the same number of points.
For example, the Adeptus Mechanicus is widely considered one of the most expensive armies to collect, while Adeptus Custodes is considered to be one of the cheapest. So here I have compared combat patrols for the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Custodes, and for the same dollar price, so 168 US dollars, in the Mechanicus box you get 290 points, whereas in the Custodes box you get 780. Now, you're not allowed to play all of these models at the same time in combat patrol games for fairness, but these all do come in the box, and so it's just that much cheaper to collect Custodes versus the Mechanicus. The Poor Hammer YouTube channel recently did a great video on how to get to 2,000 points for just 500 US dollars for a number of different armies, but often you will be spending more than that. Length of gameplay in the full fat 40K version will depend on what point level you pick. So a 1,000 point game will go faster than a 2,000 point game, but generally you should expect to play several hours for these larger games. Which one is right for you if you're just starting out? I recommend Combat Patrol because it's relatively accessible from a cost perspective, and because it uses rules that are closer to the full rule set for full 40K games. However, Kill Team has a real distinct advantage in terms of cost and time. I think it's also important to note here the rule of cool. What you think looks the coolest, what you think is the most fun to paint, etc. That should really inform what you end up picking, because you're going to put a lot of time, money, and effort into this hobby, regardless of which game mode you end up focusing on. So it's really critical that you enjoy what you're doing. So for me, when I was just starting out, I was torn between the 40K Ultimate Starter Set, which includes Space Marines and Tyranids, the combat patrols for both of those, between that and the Kill Team Starter Set, which includes Veteran Guardsmen and the Orc Kill Team. Ultimately, I chose the Ultimate Starter Set and Combat Patrol. One, because I wanted to build up to full 40K games, and because I really do not like the way that the Veteran Guardsman Kill Team looks like, though I will say I love the Orcs. With the new version of Kill Team coming out in October, I am expecting there to be a new starter set with new Kill Teams included, And so I'm considering giving it a go then and checking it out to see how it plays with my kids. So all of this to say, while I love Combat Patrol, it's been working for me since I've started, it might not be right for you. So have a think about what your goals are for this hobby, what your budget is, and how much time you're prepared to spend building, painting, and playing, and then go from there. With all that said, thank you again for all the new subscribers and all the positive feedback. Please do feel free to leave any questions, comments in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time on the Bolt and Hammer YouTube channel. Thank you.